Residents across parts of Sokoto State are quietly but seriously talking about what they have been noticing since the recent airstrike that targeted terrorist camps inside forest areas of the state. Before anything else, please like this video and subscribe to the channel so you can keep getting clear, simple and timely updates like this as the story continues to unfold. What people are saying on the ground is not based on official press briefings or written statements, but on daily observations, shared experiences, and sudden changes they are seeing around them. According to residents living close to these forest areas, the environment has changed since the airstrike. Places that used to feel tense and unpredictable have become unusually calm. Some paths that were once avoided are now quiet. Some individuals who were regularly seen around the edges of these forests are no longer there. For many locals, this has led to one common belief. The fighters who once stayed deep inside these forests are no longer comfortable remaining there. The airstrike itself was not a rumor. It was confirmed by authorities. It was described as a targeted operation against identified terrorist camps, carried out with support from the United States. Officials emphasized that the operation was carefully planned and that civilians were not harmed. That assurance is important, especially for people living close to the affected areas, because fear of accidental harm is always one of the biggest worries when air operations are mentioned. After the strike, conversations began spreading quietly from home to home, from market to market, and from one community to another. People were not shouting or celebrating. Instead, they were observing. They were paying attention to movement, silence, and absence. In many cases, it was what people did not see that stood out the most. Armed men who were once noticed at certain points were no longer visible. Forest areas that once felt active suddenly felt empty. For communities that have lived under tension for years, these small changes felt significant. At the same time, there is no clear confirmation from security agencies saying that terrorists are fleeing in large numbers. What exists right now is a mix of resident reports, local observations, and logical conclusions based on how such groups usually behave after their camps are hit. In situations like this, armed groups rarely stay in one place. Once their location is exposed and attacked, they tend to move, split up, or relocate to avoid further pressure. This is where mixed emotions come in. Some residents feel relief. For them, the strike represents action, attention, and hope that their situation is finally being taken seriously. Others feel cautious. They understand that movement does not always mean disappearance. If fighters leave the forest, they may move closer to other areas. They may blend in quietly. They may cross borders. This uncertainty creates a different kind of fear, one that is quieter but still heavy. Forests in the northwest have long been a challenge for security efforts. They are large, thick, and difficult to monitor constantly. Over time, they became places where armed groups felt protected. That is why an airstrike in such an area sends a strong message. It tells these groups that their hiding places are known and that they are being watched. For residents, this message brings cautious optimism, but also questions about what comes next. Another aspect of this story that has drawn attention is the involvement of the United States. Many Nigerians are not used to hearing about US support in air operations in this region. This has led to discussions about international cooperation, sovereignty, and long-term impact. Some people see it as a sign that the security situation has reached a level that demands broader cooperation. Others simply hope that whatever support is given leads to lasting peace rather than temporary calm. What is clear is that security issues today are not limited to one town or one state. Armed groups move across regions. Pressure in one place can cause movement to another. That is why operations like these are often followed by increased patrols, tighter monitoring, and heightened alert levels. Residents may notice more security presence. Movement may slow slightly. These steps are usually taken to prevent surprises and protect communities during sensitive periods. Daily life after such events often changes in subtle ways. People become more alert. Families talk more about safety. Some choose to limit movement for a while. Others check in on relatives more frequently. Even without new incidents, the psychological effect is real. Living under long-term insecurity leaves deep marks, and any major operation brings those feelings back to the surface. Social media, as expected, has added another layer to this situation. Alongside genuine concern and discussion, there has also been exaggeration and misinformation. Old videos have been shared as if they are new. Unverified claims have been presented as facts. This makes it harder for people to understand what is really happening. That is why calm, responsible storytelling matters. It helps people stay informed without spreading fear. As the days pass after the airstrike, the mood in and around Sokoto forest communities continues to shift in quiet but noticeable ways. People are paying closer attention to sounds at night, to movements on familiar paths, and to the presence or absence of faces they have come to recognize over time. In areas where fear once shaped daily routines, there is now a cautious pause, as if everyone is waiting to see what the next development will be. Some residents describe this period as strange rather than peaceful. They say it feels like the calm that comes after a storm, when the noise has stopped but the damage is still being assessed. For years, many of these communities lived with the knowledge that armed groups were nearby, hidden within the forests. That awareness shaped how people moved, when they traveled, and even how they spoke. Now, with the reports that these groups may have left or reduced their presence, people are adjusting mentally to a different reality, even though they are not fully convinced it will last. What stands out in many conversations is how carefully people are choosing their words. Instead of saying things are safe, they say things are quieter. Instead of expressing excitement, they express hope mixed with restraint. This shows how deeply past experiences have taught communities to be careful with expectations. They have seen situations improve briefly in the past, only to change again later. So this time, many are choosing to observe before reacting. Security experts often explain that after an airstrike, armed groups usually enter a phase of reorganization. They may abandon large camps and operate in smaller units. They may avoid areas that are now seen as exposed. They may seek new routes or temporary shelters. This means that while one location may feel calmer, others could experience tension. That is why authorities usually maintain a high level of alert even after a successful operation. In Sokoto and nearby areas, people have noticed increased patrols and monitoring. This is not unusual. It is part of a broader effort to prevent any sudden response or retaliation. For residents, this can bring reassurance, but it can also serve as a reminder that the situation is still sensitive. Life continues, markets open, children go to school, but there is an underlying awareness that things are being watched closely. Another point people are discussing is the message this operation sends beyond Sokoto. Armed groups pay attention to patterns. When they see camps being identified and targeted, it affects how they plan and operate. For communities that have felt forgotten for a long time, this operation has been interpreted as a sign that attention is finally being given to their situation. Whether that attention will be consistent is a question many are asking quietly. There is also discussion about intelligence gathering. People are wondering how the camps were identified and how long they had been under observation. While these details are not usually shared publicly for security reasons, the effectiveness of the strike has led many to believe that information from the ground played a role. This has sparked conversations about trust between communities and security agencies and how cooperation can make a difference. At the same time, there is concern about displacement. When armed groups move, they do not disappear into thin air, they go somewhere. This reality keeps communities alert, especially those located along known movement routes. People are watching who comes and goes, not out of suspicion alone, but out of a desire to protect what little stability they may have gained. The involvement of international partners has also led to wider national conversations. Some people are focused on what this means for Nigeria's security strategy. Others are thinking about how such cooperation is managed and communicated. What most people agree on is that security challenges today are complex and require coordination, not just force. As information continues to circulate, responsible communication becomes even more important. Community leaders, local voices, and media platforms all play a role in shaping how people understand what is happening. Clear information reduces panic. Calm explanations help people make sense of change. Silence, on the other hand, often creates space for fears and speculation. For now, residents are watching, listening, and waiting. They are hopeful but careful. They are relieved but alert. They are aware that one operation does not end a long-running problem, but it can signal a turning point if followed by consistent action. This is where the story stands at the moment. Developments are ongoing and the situation remains fluid. What happens next will become clearer with time, observation, and official updates.